Hey there, neighbor. Home slice. Back to the book. Installment 3, The New Mysteries. Let us look back to the time of the ancient mysteries, to the time that had its last echoes in ancient Greece, and its culmination in ancient Egypt, Babylon, Persia, and India. In those days, everything was determined by the mystery temples and the mystery places. A pluralist, liberal life was still unknown. Things were extremely strict and rigorous. Our freedom, which we take for granted today, did not exist then. Harvest time and sowing time were controlled, as were what we today call the sphere of religion and learning, rites, customs, and education. The mystery centers influenced household life right down to details. From these holy places, all of the affairs of humanity, which had not yet come of age, were guided. Matters of science and religion were taught, and guidance was given for the arts and occupations. For the people of that time, the supersensible world was still open. They lived with powerful, dreamy, imaginative pictures and were thus able to experience that each of the mystery centers was inspired by a certain planet. In each of the mysteries, different priorities were developed. All of these elements were held together by the sun. From Venus came everything connected with play and enjoyment. Mars inspired everything connected with war. Mercury gave impulses for communication. Saturn determined the inner space, the living space of the human being. Jupiter was there when roles and tasks were distributed. The moon, finally, determined everything connected with physical enjoyment, from nourishment to sexuality. Originally, these mysteries gave the inspiration for everything. Everything connected with the household was influenced by spiritual concerns. All aspects of it were originally gifts of the gods. For the sake of the freedom of mankind, the mysteries had to come to an end. This began in Greece. Instead of Delphi, Ephesus, and Samothrace, the last great mysteries came Plato and Aristotle. They represent independently thinking human beings. The emancipation of the individual began with the logic of Aristotle. Today, the individual is free, can be free, if he wants to be. When he was no longer determined by the gods, the human being began to establish himself as an earth being. The gods still worked within the religious element, but directions as to how the earth was to be formed in a human way were no longer given. That had been the content of the mysteries. The mysteries had led human beings to become ever more human and differentiated, to develop the arts, the sciences, social life, and forms of civilization. As independence developed, the demise of old civilizations and cultural forms began, especially during the last centuries. Today, nothing can be managed with the old forces. The old ideals and role expectations are used up, no longer carry, neither for men nor women. New mysteries need to arise in society. The old mysteries went under. They existed only so long as the human being was under age. The new mysteries have to reckon with an individual ego that has become independent. In the Egyptian epoch, everything was still connected. The entire culture was an organic whole, a mystery culture. The new mystery should become a mystery culture also. All aspects of civilization and culture should become an organic whole. Amen. Since the human being is now emancipated, he can no longer expect directions from above. There are no temples anymore that give such directions. Neither can the Gertianum be expected to give directions. Only the individual is left, and the place to start is in the household. The new mystery society will start with the household, or not at all. For where homemakers are working out of spiritual understanding, that is where the new society will arise. Chills, chills, chills. Governments, the Vatican, also the Girtianum, can relay insights. But the new mysteries arise individually at various places. They arise when households that are spiritualizing themselves join together and then work further into education, health, etc. If the homemaker asks after the purpose of her work, the answer is, she stands within the situations from out of which a new society will develop. Therefore, homemaker, that's in quotes, in the future will receive a totally new meaning, particularly with regard to the role of the woman. For the homemaker's whole existence stands at the center of one of the greatest changes ever to take place in human history. Extremely dark conditions were prophesied by Rudolf Steiner for the current civilization. He said openly that by the end of the century, Europe would stand before an abyss if our way of living did not change. But he said also that if enough individuals wanted it, a renewal of civilization would be possible. That is why he said again and again that humanity must learn to include the spiritual element, the principle of initiation, among the principles of civilization. To express it differently, just as in the ancient mysteries, humanity must learn, but now independently, to place in its center a principle of order that connects everything. This alone can be the guiding principle for the modern homemaker. This principle of initiation or individualization means to make things more human. The human being is neither a bodily being nor a species being, but a spiritual being. Why does the human being assert his individuality now? The answer lies in the words love and freedom. The interaction of freedom and love is what makes up an individuality. If the human being were only free, everything would end in chaos. If he had only love, everything would become force. Freedom and love, mutually fructifying each other, are ordering principles that civilization needs once again. I'm going to reread that. That's just so fun. Freedom and love, mutually fructifying each other, are ordering principles that civilization needs once again. The household is the starting point. The family life of father, mother, and child is the smallest and most basic part of our social life. That is where the renewal must make a small beginning. Europe, as a continent of freedom, as a continent of love, will not arise in Brussels and not in Berlin. Such a Europe will come from the individually formed primal element of society. And I think we can say America too here. The home, the family, the homemaker, the homemaking. I added homemaking. How can the homemaker find the strength for this task? Is there a path of development for homemakers? Are there exercises that help one to organize, relieve time pressure, and plan well? And how does the homemaker find new insight? How about the homemaker doesn't do it all herself or himself? They already covered that. I couldn't help but throw that in because I just feel that there's a calling for shared homemaking. Can somewhat be based on gender, obvi. There are biological differences. And the structures are not working in terms of dad gone all day doing his thing and mom home all day with the children, scrubbing and washing and caring and doing all of that. Doesn't work. So I agree. Doesn't work. So I'm looking forward to finding these new insights together. See you in the next video. Thanks for tuning in. Bye!